Hi,
Good morning, Phil.
good morning. Good
Um,
morning, Amber. Early morning.
so
Good morning. It must look so early here.
it's what, 5 o'clock in the afternoon for you, Phil?
It's 5:30.
Uh,
Yeah.
Well, we haven't done this for a while.
No, back on track. Yeah, we had a visit from Augustina's parents, and then I had some things I wanted to get finished. So I did that, and now I'm back on track.
All right.
The DES.
Well, good. I'm interested to see where we're going. I can't remember exactly where we've been. I remember that it was being sort of interesting, but I don't remember. Let me know.
Okay. Now, as for beepers working very well, I had no issues. I can get to beep number one.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so the weather was quite hot. It was, I figured it out in Fahrenheit. It was 84, which might not sound so hot for you.
Not for me.
It's very rare for the temperature to go up that high here. So I was in our entranceway respooling doggy bags that had unraveled. At the moment before the beep, as I was doing this, I innerly heard what was like an echo of myself saying, I don't really want to. I was referring to not wanting to go out to get some groceries. It was like I was reiterating that to myself because I already knew that I didn't want to go. At the same time, I was thinking to myself that like the premise that you don't really want to do anything when it's so hot out. Though this didn't contain words, or at least not clearly. So this one, I think this one's a bit tough.
And are those things simultaneous? I don't really want to, and I don't want to do anything when it's hot out. Does that seem like it's happening at the same time?
Yeah, more or less simultaneous. Maybe overlapping. Um, yeah, I would say that they're simultaneous or nearly entirely overlapping.
Okay.
I
And by
just had
sim-
I had this sentiment of or this sort of realization that well I've had it before. It just hasn't been I haven't experienced heat in a long time, and this realization that it kind of makes you not want to do anything because it's uncomfortable outside and it's hot. Um, so saying to myself, I don't really want to. I might have said it. I feel like I might have thought it innerly with words, and I just kind of, it was just repeating. Maybe it was more like I was hearing myself saying that. But while that was happening, there was this realization of a more general sentiment that, hey, you don't really want to go out and do things. You don't really want to go out and do anything when it's hot.
Okay. So let me back up a second and say what I mean by simultaneous. When I say simultaneous, I don't mean that they start at one time and sort of in parallel. They start at one time and then they end at one time. That's a more strict version of simultaneous than I had in mind.
Okay.
What I have in mind when I say simultaneous is that at the precise moment that the beat begins, that they're both ongoing. And one of
Okay.
them might have started a second ago and is going to go on for another couple of seconds, and another one might have started a half a second ago. But as long as they're both going on at the moment of the beep, then I call that simultaneous.
Then I would say they were simultaneous.
Okay. So there are a lot of overlapping experiences where they're not exactly time locked, that they're asynchronous
Hmm.
going on, but that's a different deal. So I'm gathering that these experiences are simultaneous in the sense of both caught in flight by the beep at the same time, but
Yeah.
but not time locked in that. I'm not saying that they started at the same time and would end at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's right.
And is one of these more salient than the other, or do they seem sort of evenly, or what?
I would say the realization that nobody really wants to do anything when it's so hot out was perhaps a little bit more salient.
And by a little bit more, 60-40, 70-30, 80.
I would say 75-25.
Okay. And that, I'm gathering, is, well, I've heard several different versions. I don't want to do anything when nobody wants to do anything when it's hot out.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say it was strictly those words, but just this. I don't know. Maybe I just can't recall if it was if what the exact words were, if there were words, but it was kind of vague. It was just more like a sentiment.
People don't want to do things when it's hot.
Yeah. I don't know. What I wrote down was I was thinking to myself that, quote, you don't really want to do anything when it's so hot out. So maybe I stick with my original.
Okay.
You as in anyone.
Okay. And I understood the first time when you said that this one was not in words, that the I don't really want to is in words, but the you don't really want to do anything when it's hot out is not in words. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I wrote, or I said at least not clearly. It's like I think I have another sort of experience like this in a different beep where I couldn't really tell if they're words or like it was kind of like there were hints of words, but I wasn't sure if there were actual words.
So one of the challenges is that when we talk about things, we have to put them into words, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be in words when we were experiencing them in the first place. And so I think it's possible to think a thought like this. You don't really want to do anything when it's hot out. To think that in words or in no words at all, but just a thought, or in some hints of words or partial words or one word that means the whole thing, or all those things are possible.
I would say it was more like in partial hints of words, as best I could put it.
Okay. And I would say that one of the reasons that we do this multiple times, and maybe we've taken enough of a time off that we're back to we're having a step backwards or whatever about that, is that one of the things that's interesting is the extent to which words are present in speaking.
Yeah.
And I guess it's probably particularly interested in you, for you, who started out with an interest in inner speech.
Yeah.
Now you've got a contrary possibility. Well, should I call this speech? Is this speech? It certainly isn't speech like the other one was speech. What
right.
Do about that?
I think perhaps in some previous beeps, I've been sort of at a loss to describe. I might have been a bit inaccurate, thinking that it either has to be words or not words, and there's no possibility of anything in between. But after a couple of experiences this time, I'm perhaps starting to convince myself that it is possible to have something that's in between words and no words.
Well, let's accept that as possible and see whether we can get past trying to convince ourselves of the possibility, and see whether we can go for the actuality of what it was for Phil at the times of particular beeps, and not worry about the possibility, the general possibility. Because one of the things that I need to fight about, or that we need to fight about in DES all the time, is people who want to have this experience, whatever the experience is, fit into some category that they've got in mind. And it's much better if we suspend the categories and let the categories emerge at the end. So when we're done, after, when we can look back and we can say, well, there were words here some of the time and not other times. That's a better generalization made looking backwards than looking forwards.
Yes. And I just wanted to mention that I don't really want to. That was with words, but it was like an echo of it was more like I was hearing myself repeat it than actually say it, because I think I had come to that realization a minute prior or so, like I already knew that I didn't really want to go. I didn't need to say it to myself. It was kind of like I was just complaining to myself or something.
And when you say like an echo in the real world is an auditory thing. I hear that coming back to me for the second time or whatever. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you mean that as an auditory thing at this beep. I could have been by echo. I mean, I'm just saying it over again. I'm saying, I don't really want to. I don't really want to. I don't really want to.
Right. I don't. Yeah. I'm just saying it over again.
So this is a saying. This is a saying over again. You think?
Yeah, I think so.
So this would be an inner.
Well, no, I have to be careful here because I don't know if I want to use the word saying, but it's kind of, I say echo because it was kind of, yeah, and I think we've been here before. It was perhaps a bit more like I was hearing myself saying it than actually saying it.
So that would be like a true echo. If I'm in a canyon somewhere and I say hello, and then a second later I hear hello coming back.
Okay. When you were talking about an auditory experience before, I sort of thought of that as like actually hearing, like hearing something, more like an auditory hallucination or something. But this is just something like a thought coming to me again. Yeah, I think I might be muddying the waters here.
Well, our task is to muddy these waters so that then next time around, if something similar happens, we can get to it more clearly. So, or more.
I can just try to do it one. I can try to put it in one final way. It was just like I could hear myself saying, "I don't really want to," for the nth time.
So the locution "hear myself saying" is an ambiguous one for me to receive.
Okay.
So does that mean I am saying for the nth time, I don't really want to? Or does that mean that I am now just hearing it as if I had somehow said it and now it is being played back to me?
I think it must have been somewhere in between.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is fine with me. I don't have a preference for one or the other, and I don't have a need for it to be one or the other. I'm just trying to get at as best we can to the experience. So I guess given that we've been at this beat for 15 minutes already, we're probably going to end up with, this is somewhere in between saying this to myself and hearing myself say it.
Yep.
And it's only 25% of my experience anyway, because the more of my experience is, well, you don't really want to do anything when it's hot. And that is sort of in the never, never land between words and not words.
Yes. Yes.
So from the standpoint of somebody interested in inner speech, you could say that neither one of these is inner speech, or you could say that both of them are inner speech. Or you could say, well, the concept of inner speech doesn't really apply very well to this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't have to decide that about this particular beep. It's what makes this task interesting is the attempt for us to try to be honest with each other about what we're trying to say. That's the
Yes, yeah, I'm trying it, but it's difficult. It's difficult, and it is. I do think it's easy to post-dictate something afterward. Like the more I talk about it, the more I might change it in some ways.
I totally agree with that. So the longer we talk about something, the less I believe what we say about it. And yeah. And so what that means is that the longer we talk about it, the more that this is preparation for next time, so that tomorrow or next week or whenever we do this again, the fill is ready at the moment of the beep or just after the beep to be able to try to enter into this conversation that we're having here. And I think that is a fundamental nature of the process that we're engaged in.
Okay.
And it's just the way it is. If you're trying to be careful about it, we just have to have this. I guess you could say saltatory conversation where we're going to have a conversation, then we're going to end it, and then maybe we're going to pick it up again later on with a new sample, a new experience, newly acquired, but with the alteration of Phil's and Russ's and Amber's joint understanding of what we have to say to each other in order to make ourselves clear.
Active and passive seem to be recurring issues, and words and no words seem to be recurring issues, I think. Okay, I'm going to do beat number 2.
Good.
I was flipping through the TV channels and paused on, I'm slightly embarrassed to say this, but America's Funniest Home Videos Animal Edition. So Albert the cat was refusing to come down from a tree. Instead, he jumped up higher into a different tree. His owner, a woman, was surprised and made an exclamation that I couldn't clearly hear. At the instant before the beep, I had just looked at the subtitle on the screen, because the shows that are in English mostly get Norwegian subtitles. And the subtitle said, Albert, hva gjør du nå? It's hard to describe, but I retrospectively, automatically ascribed her exclamation, her vocal exclamation, while innerly hearing it, Albert, what are you doing now? Which is the translation of what the subtitle said. Without words, I was beginning to analytically apprehend how the now in the translation didn't quite fit with the auditory trace of what she had said, which seemed shorter. Like didn't have as many words. I was realizing it might have been a bit of a mistranslation. Such realizing might have occurred during the beep, like I have difficulty with the exact timing, but so basically she said something, there were words on the screen, and then it was like I heard an echo of what she said using the translation of the words on the screen, and had this realization that it might have not been quite right.
Okay, so this is complicated than the last one. So
yeah. Yeah.
So at the moment of the beep, let's give this person a name just so we can call her. Let's call her, or you give me a name, whatever.
Jane.
Jane?
Yep.
Okay, let's call her Jane. So Jane has said something about the cat, and you haven't fully understood it.
Right.
And you're trying to understand it, and as you understand it, the Norwegian translation appears on the screen.
Yep.
And now you're hearing Jane again. Now I'm with the.
It was like I automatically heard her say the same thing again, and what I heard was the English translation of what was on the screen.
So this is a hearing phenomenon. I hear Jane again.
Yeah.
And does it seem like it again, like I heard it the first time and now I'm hearing it again, or does it seem like I'm still hearing it?
I heard it the first time, but what she said wasn't clear. And the second time, I heard the exact translation of the words on the screen.
So the exact retranslation.
But I fully realized, I could tell that it was just like I automatically did it in my head. So it wasn't like I thought that she had said something again on the television. I just kind of put the words to the screen what she had just said, and then it kind of didn't fit right.
So this is I want to nail down the word hearing. I hear Jane's voice again at the moment of the beep. Is that true? In my imagination.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And now I hear her speaking plain English, which is the retranslation back from Norwegian.
Yeah.
Okay. And so my imagination has done this for me. It's happening automatically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Albert, what are you doing now?
Okay. And that is, and that's in Jane's voice, not in Philip's voice imitating Jane. This is in Jane's.
Yes, it's in Jane's voice.
Okay. And at the same time, and using our definition of simultaneity, my definition of simultaneity as ongoing when the beep happens at the moment of the onset of the beep, basically, I am thinking that this translation isn't right. The word now is.
Yeah. I wrote that it might have happened during the beep. This inkling of, hey, that didn't fit quite right. So I automatically heard her voice again saying, Albert, what are you doing? But then when it hit the now, it was like there was something wrong, because what she had just said seems briefer. Like it seemed like it didn't have as many words.
So at the moment of the beep, the now sounds wrong by comparison to the translation, or the translation seems wrong by comparison to the sound?
That's a good question.
But not necessarily.
I can't answer that. They're both kind of the same thing, aren't they?
With what I'm trying to get at is this a hearing thing? It sounds wrong, or an analytical thing? I judge that to be wrong. But I'm not sure that that's possible to make that distinction.
I think it was more of an analytical thing. Because when it got to the now, and it was like I instantaneously realized that it didn't fit, and then it was just a realizing that the now didn't fit in there.
So let me see whether I understand that. So at the moment of the beep, I'm hearing Jane say, Albert, what are you doing now? And it seems like I'm hearing that accurately.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm judging that some kind of an analysis. Well, that doesn't fit what the translation was.
Yeah.
The now portion of it doesn't fit the translation.
Right. Yeah.
And it's hard to know exactly where the beep came in there. It seems like we're confident that the beep came while I was hearing Jane say, for the second time, but we're not confident about where the analysis comes from.
Correct. I would say, I think, okay, I want to clarify that I believe that the realization that the now didn't fit in might have happened during the beep. And perhaps at the instant before the beep, I was hearing her in my mind say, Albert, what are you doing now? Like the now didn't quite, I had more difficulty ascribing her voice to saying now than I did, Albert, what are you doing? And that made me think without words, hey, there might be something wrong with this translation. A realization that might have occurred after the onset of the beep, but just after.
So does that mean that my inner hearing of Jane somehow degrades or warps or something when I get to the word now?
Yes.
So that makes it something of an auditory phenomenon that now doesn't sound right, and something of an analytical phenomenon, but maybe the analytical part of it is coming later.
Yes.
So I think I'm pretty good about this then. I think I understand.
Okay.
So Phil's engaged in a fairly complicated, if not particularly important task of trying to figure out whether this translation is right or whatever, but I think I'm good. Amber, you got questions about that?
I think I'm good too.
Okay. We don't really know what happened to Albert, by the way. Okay, in the context, beep 3, in the context of cleaning up after dinner, which involves clanking dish noises, at the moment before the beep, I noticed Agostina looking at me with very wide eyes, making a fast double take motion with her head. She was indicating that the beeper, which I had in my shirt pocket, was going off. Right before I heard the beep myself, visually, I apprehended the whites of her eyes, focusing on their whiteness. So in all honesty, I didn't realize that the beep had gone off. I only did after she looked at me like, hey, beeper's going off.
So are you using an earphone?
I was not at the moment.
And how about the previous beeps? Have you been using the earphone?
No. No, I was not. I find that it's quite loud in the earphone, and I have a bit more difficulty describing the moment at the beep or the moment right before the beep. And if I can carry it in my shirt pocket, I can usually hear it quite clearly.
So what we've discovered, I would say, is that if you have it in your shirt pocket, that we end up with timing issues of the kind that we're talking about.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that, and this is a really good example of that, because Agostina could hear the beep before you processed the beep, but you were probably processing the beep. So when the beep is in, when the speaker is in your pocket, it makes it too easy for you to have the beep have a sort of a gradual onset into your consciousness.
Okay.
When the beep is in your ear, it's pretty much the deal that's the beep is happening now.
Okay.
So the beeper has a volume control,
Yep.
And even when it's turned down all the way, it's still too loud. Because we've had a couple of people like that over the years, and I have something that I could send you, which is, or you could pick up or whatever. It's a dongle with a volume control in it, where you can make it.
Oh, okay. I might be able to pick up one of those relatively easily.
Probably just as easy for you to find one and get it to on Amazon or whatever. But basically what you need is
volume control would be good, because honestly sometimes it just startles me, and then I've had occasions where I don't remember. I can't describe what was happening, and yeah, it's been difficult sometimes because I do find it quite loud. not impossibly loud, but sometimes I get distracted by the beep to the point where I find it difficult. I find it easier to just have it in my shirt pocket or right next to me or something.
Well, I would say that it's likely that the difficulty we had on the first beep might be from the beep not being delivered adequately, crisply to your ear.
Okay. Okay. I will try to use the earphone.
And I will try to figure out exactly what I used as a dongle, and we'll see whether we can figure that out.
Okay, that would be great.
Anything that serves as a volume control thing with an 1/8" plug that you put on one side, male on one side, female on the other side, with a variable resistor in the middle. That's all we're talking about, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Did you want to know anything more about that beep? Yeah, we haven't really discussed it.
So at the moment you heard the beep was well after the beep was available to be heard in the environment, because Agustina could hear it.
Yep.
What you notice is the whites of her eyes.
Yes.
So and is that basically all there is in your experience at the moment? So
that's pretty much it. Yeah. She has very blue eyes, and she had just been cleaning something up underneath the sink, like tying a bag or something. And she stood up, and I think her face was a little bit red. Being Scandinavian, there's a stereotype about unusually red faces. So maybe it made the whites of her eyes stand out a little bit more. But she opened her eyes quite widely and was like, "Hey, beep."
And so is the redness of her face part of your experience right now, or at the moment of the beep, as best you can tell, it's just the whites of her eyes?
It's just the whites of her eyes. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, then I'm good for that. And so for what's this? Let's retrospect here about how many of the previous days beeps have been with and without the earphone.
I would say maybe more beeps without. Maybe 60-40.
Okay. And is that usually across days, like within a day, half the beeps are with them and half the beeps are without? Or is it over days I've just stopped using the earphone?
No, it's hard to say, but if I'm going out, I will use the earphone. I don't just carry it and hope that I hear it. If I'm doing something that involves some noise, or if there's noise in the environment, then I'll use the earphone. But if I'm confident that it's quiet enough and I'll hear the beep clearly without the earphone, then I prefer to do it that way.
All right. Well, let's assume that way is not as good as with the earphone.
Okay.
And I would say the conversation we had about the first beep.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
Is maybe an artifact of not using the earphone.
It could be. It could be.
All right, beep number 4.
Okay. I was viewing two photographs just on the screen of my computer. I was viewing two photographs taken at the same location in Toronto. I lived in Toronto, I lived there for a long time. One in 1971 and the other from 2022, this year. They were surprisingly similar, and I was comparing them to spot differences. At the moment before the beep, I had 1971 in my own voice, slowly echoing in my head. And there's that word echoing again. And I had just noticed a distinctive building in the 2022 picture and was about to glance at the 1971 picture to see if it was there or if it looked the same. It was like there was a faint trace of the words building there, as in, let's see if the building is still there, but with only a faint hint somehow of those words without clearly apprehending them or hearing them. So this one's a bit tricky, I think.
So there's two parallel inner experiential traces, or whatever we want to call those things. One is 1971, and the other is building there. Those are the two things that we've got to figure out. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. And if there was anything visual, which there must have been. I'm trying to remember. I wrote this down, but I haven't really thought about it since. Yeah, okay, I kind of remember now. It was like I was again sort of halfway between hearing and speaking 1971, and it was quite slow. It was like I was looking at the 1971 picture, and it was like I could hear myself saying 1971, but simultaneously I was checking looking at a building because it was kind of distinctive in the picture, and I was looking at it and I was about to glance at the other picture, and I had this again, for lack of a better word, sentiment of building there. Like, is this building going to be there? But those words or any words weren't very clear.
So of those two, is one of them seem like it's more salient to you? The building there portion or the 1971 portion? Or equal?
I would say it's around equal.
Okay. Well, let's start with the building there. So what I've got so far is if there are words there, they're very faint.
Yeah.
And would that be as good to say, well, there probably aren't words there, but the meaning is there?
No, I think there was something about building there, as in, let's see if that building is there. But that's an interesting way that you put it. The words aren't there, but the meaning is there. It's difficult for me to remember exactly.
Okay.
So, somewhere around that border. That's actually a really interesting way to put it. The meaning was there, but the word wasn't. The words weren't. Yeah.
So I think it's very possible. I think the meaning and the words are two separate deals. And
yeah.
And when life is going easily, they're together, and the meaning and the words match each other. But but I think of them as coming from sort of two different parts of the brain or whatever. I don't have any brain theory about it, but it's like when the meaning and the words come together, and the words come out of your mouth easily, but sometimes the meaning comes and sometimes the words come, and but they can be on different trains.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is another reason why we have to be as precise about the beep, which is why the earphone is a big deal, because we're trying to separate things which are sort of difficult to separate. So what I think we can say confidently is it's not just that the words building there are clear to me and are some kind of a condensation of the whole sentence. Is this building really there in 1971? It's not just a condensation down to two clear words. Are we agreement about that?
Yeah.
That if we've condensed a fuller sentence, a more complete sentence, not only have we condensed the number of words in that sentence, but we've condensed the
Is it possible that maybe it's possible that there was a faint trace of the words of the condensed sentence? Is that building still there? Or let's see if that building is still there. But just condensed into building there, but only very, very faintly present in the experience.
So I think that's possible, and I would like us to bracket that as well. So what I would like us to do is to say, well, there is a theory out there that says that we can condense inner speech, and let's set that theory aside. Maybe that's true or not. And if it's true, then we're going to figure out, well, building there those were clearly clear words. That was a true condensation, or
I'm just saying that because I'm trying to stick to the accuracy of my original description that I wrote not long after the experience. And it was like there was a faint trace of the words building there with a question mark, as in, let's see if the building is still there, right before I glanced at the other picture, but with only a faint hint somehow of those words, but without clearly apprehending them or hearing them.
Okay. So what you said at the beginning of this last paragraph was, I'm trying to be faithful to the words that I've written, or something like that. Trying to be accurate about the words that I've written. I don't think that's the proper way to think about it.
Okay.
What I think is, what I would like us to do is to be accurate, or what I call faithful to the next experience. What you wrote about the last experience was framed by your understanding of the way inner speech is, and the way the world is, and the mechanics of the earphone and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And you did and I'm not being critical of you in the slightest. You did the best you could about that, but that's not good enough. What the object is to take all that stuff. Well, this is what I wrote about that last time, and this is what the earphone deal is, and this is what the condensation means, and all that stuff, and try to get into a position where the next time you got a better shot at it.
Okay.
That is the heart of the matter.
Okay. It is.
It is indeed, and there's just no way around it. So much of psychology, I think, tries to analyze what people say and get an accurate understanding of what people say, but it's not good enough. It just isn't. And this is not a criticism of Phil, and it's not a criticism of Russ or of Amber, of anybody. It is the way it is. If there is a phenomenon that is difficult, we have got to go through this kind of confrontation or conversation, or whatever you want to call it, it's sort of like building a better and better duck blind so that you can get a better shot at the next bird that comes past.
A better what?
A better shot, like if you're a hunter.
Okay.
And you go out the first time and you put up a piece of plywood, and then the next time you put some branches on it or whatever, and then pretty soon you get yourself really hidden out there so that you can get a really good shot.
Duck shelter. Okay. Yeah. Yes.
But it takes time and effort and honesty and genuineness and acceptance and.
Okay. I will. Yes, that's a good way to put it. Consider the next, like, what can I do better for the next beep?
That's exactly right.
Each time. Yeah.
And if it turns out this word phenomenon, what you summarized them a little bit ago, but I can't remember what you said. It was words are not words, and time.
Something between active and passive, and
active and passive. Yeah. So we got to get better at being able to discriminate those things within a tenth of a second after they happen. And then you can, when you get good at it, then you can tell us about what was going on there. And
it might need some practice, but I'm going for it.
I'm happy to do it because I think it is the fundamentally interesting thing. You can slide over it, which I think psychology generally does, theorists generally do, or you can work at it. And I don't think there's any middle ground. I think it is a work. We have to work at it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Number 5. Well, I guess in 1971, I still want to I still want to deal with the 1971 portion.
Sure.
So we're still calling this I hear myself say 1971.
Yeah. Yes.
And
slowly. Like you. Yeah. Yes.
Hear myself say is the same thing as if it were a true echo and I was in a canyon and I say hello, and a second later I hear myself say hello coming back to me. But that second hear myself say is an entirely auditory phenomenon. If I'm in a true echo canyon,
can I say that it was like 70% auditory phenomenon? Just like an echo, you have to, well, if you hear your own echo, that means that you did actually say something beforehand. So there is an active component, even though it's an echo. But
there was an active.
Yeah, it's not a proper comparison. But yeah, I was hearing my voice say 1971 because I think I had just read something about like these two photographs saying, the comparison on, I forget what street it was, from 1971 and 2022. And then I looked at each photo and then I realized that it wasn't so easy to spot the differences. And then I tried to put more effort towards it, and I thought, I'm going to have a good look at the 1971 photo, examine it, and then have a good look at the 2022 photo. And what I noticed in the 1971 photo was that building. And as I was looking at that photo, I could sort of hear myself saying 1971, but it wasn't something I was actively thinking about or putting effort towards, or there was there was more of a passive component to it.
So we could call this maybe a passive speaking.
Yeah.
Or a hearing.
A passive speaking, yeah.
Or we can leave this as in the somewhere in the never land between speaking and hearing. Maybe
I suppose, yeah.
Maybe 70% or whatever.
Yeah.
And it is definitely the case. So one of the things we need to keep clearly in mind is that the words that we use to describe these things in the external world don't necessarily apply in the real world. Like in the external world and in the echo situation, there's clearly a difference between speaking and hearing. When I say hello, and then a second later I hear hello, well, the one was a speaking and the other was a hearing, and there's no question about that in the real world. But in the experiential world, it is not necessarily that clear. But the question is it because experientially it's not so clear in my head, in my experience at the moment of the beat, whether this is a hearing thing or a speaking thing, or whether I just am not clearly enough using the word. So we have to.
I don't know. You could imagine it like maybe I could have said it out loud, and I could have been looking at the photograph and saying 1971, and then just catching myself saying that. So sure, you're speaking it, but it's not speaking in the same sense that I'm speaking to you right now. Like I'm trying to communicate, like for communication. You could just find yourself like thinking, like the phrase "thinking out loud," and looking at this photograph and saying, "Okay, 1971," and then not even realize that you're actually saying that out loud. So in this case, it was kind of something like that, but I wasn't saying it out loud, for lack of a better way to put it.
So I think that sometimes speaking out loud or innerly can be more or less like a gesture. Like if we're in an animated conversation and I make some kind of a gesture, I don't plan that gesture. It just sort of comes out of me while I'm in the process of saying whatever it is that I wanted to say. And most of the time I wouldn't even notice that I've gestured. It's part of the bag of bones that I'm engaged in, and the gesture comes out. Well, I think words can be like that as well. So for example, in your first speak, you said something like, "I don't really want to." You could think of that as a gesture. These words came out of me. They didn't have any particular meaning any more than this hand wave has a particular meaning. It came out of me. I waved my hand, and it certainly had some meaning. I was trying to make some kind of a point. I didn't say this, I said that, or whatever. But it is more gestural than it is linguistic, I guess you could say.
Yeah, yeah.
And it could very well be that I don't really want to end the 1971 are both sort of like that. They're my verbal gesture apparatus.
Yes. Yeah.
And in that kind of a situation, in my gesture kind of a situation, it's an active thing. Of course, I'm doing it. It's not like I'm a marionette and somebody is moving my hand back and forth. But I don't planfully make a gesture either. It comes out of me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. That's why I say it had more like a passive than an active component to it.
So more like a passive speaking than a hearing of my voice.
Yeah. Yes, I would go with that.
And here again, I'm not trying to answer the question. What this is, the conversation that we're having here from my perspective is about next week. It's too late for this. It's too late. It's every conversation that we always have is always too late about these beats.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. And so this conversation is what let's try to figure out how we can talk to each other about this stuff in an ever more faithful way.
Yep.
And maybe this distinction between gesture and whatever is going to be helpful to us, and maybe it's not. And
I think it will. I think I'm going to think about that more, and I'm going to have that in mind.
All right. Well, we're up on an hour here. Do we want to get the last 2 weeks, or do we think we have?
I think let's go for it.
All right. Number 5.
Okay. I had just heard a sudden noise after a gust of wind had blown. So I was inside, and I could hear the wind outside through the open windows. At first, I thought it was a door that had blown shut, like the front door. But then I realized it might have been our clothes drying rack, which had some clothes on it out on the patio. At the moment before the beep, I was visualizing the dry rack with the clothes on it falling over.
And so at the moment of the beep, is your experience primarily of this visualization?
Yes.
What do you see?
I see the clothes on the rack on the patio falling over. I see them where I had just moved it from a previous spot where it had blown over. So I had just seen what it looked like. I had just seen what it looked like. Everything okay? Yeah. Yeah. I had just seen the clothes rack on the ground, fallen over. I put it back up and moved it to a different spot, and then I was inside, and then I heard the noise, and the picture I had in mind was similar to what I had just seen, but with the clothes rack in the new location.
And when you say falling over, do you mean in motion? I see it in the act of falling?
Yes.
And so do you see it from upright to all the way over, or what do you see?
I see it perhaps already partially falling and continuing to fall.
Okay. And this is in color, and
It's in color, yes.
and does it seem like an accurate view of what you've seen, or what you could see?
I would say that yes. Yeah. Unlike when I was imagining that backpack being crooked, being slanted on my back, and that backpack didn't look anything like my actual backpack. Mm-hmm. This one I think was a lot more accurate, probably because I had just seen it. Although I saw it falling over, but I was visualizing it falling over.
And does this seeing have a border to it, like a photograph would have a border, or does it just seem like I'm seeing it and the borders disappear?
I think maybe I was going to mention something about this. I was looking out the window, and it was almost like, it was like, you know what, I remember from high school photography, you could burn an image into another image. And it was kind of like this image was burned into what I was actually seeing. Slightly, but it was very, very dominant.
So I'm not 100% sure I understand that. So do you mean
Yeah,
that
I don't.
my real eyeballs are aimed at the window and I'm
Yeah,
somehow registering that, but more so I am seeing what my mind's eye is seeing, which is the falling clothes rack?
yeah, yeah.
And do they seem superimposed, which would be the case if you were burning an image onto a photoplate? Or does it seem like they're just sort of simultaneous? I'm seeing both of them.
I would say that it was like 90% I was seeing the clothes rack falling.
So let's set aside the theory that we have one visual experiencer, and maybe we've got several simultaneous experiencers that can go on at the same time. So does it seem like I'm 90%? Does that 90% mean I am more dominantly seeing the internal scene, the imagined scene?
Yeah.
And then separately for 10%, I'm still seeing the real scene.
Maybe seeing isn't the word to describe it, but it was an awareness of my gazing out the window. I don't know. I might have messed this one up. I might have distorted it.
Hmm.
I don't know. Perhaps I think I heard the noise, and then my immediate reaction was to just look outside, and then I thought it was the door, and then I thought, oh no, maybe it was the clothes rack falling over, and then I could visualize it, but I was still just like I am now, looking in at the wall here. I don't know. I don't know if it entirely, if I went there to like being, so I could also describe it as me being outside, looking at it, falling over where it was. I don't know. I might have.
So the distinction that I would make there is the me being outside part of the experience, or does that mean I have a perspective as if I had a video camera out there watching this thing go down?
I had a perspective in my visualization of the clothes rack falling over.
So my experiences of the clothes rack falling over, as if there was nobody out there watching.
As if I was standing outside looking at it falling over.
So that's the distinction that I'm trying to tease apart here for the future reference, basically.
Okay.
Is this experience of myself being outside, in which case there's some experience of Phil in this. Phil is being outside watching this happen.
No,
or is it just like an external perspective on this thing falling over?
Like you mentioned with the video camera, it was like I was watching what a video camera would have filmed of the clothes rack falling over.
So I see the clothes rack falling over. It doesn't have anything to do with Phil. This is Phil is created with that.
Yeah.
But the experiences of seeing the clothes rack fall over. And in the real world, I would have had to have been out there seeing it. But in my imagination, I'm seeing it from a perspective as if, but what I see is the thing falling over.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Number 6.
Yeah, this one was difficult. I had turned a wall light switch on, but the light did not light. I pressed the switch a second time and a third time, and I heard the noise of the flick of the switch each time. At the moment before the beep, I was innerly saying the word on. I believe I had just innerly said, it's not coming on. And now the word on seemed to repeat. Perhaps I heard on as I pressed the switch to the on position. The light flashed faintly around this time, which I noticed, but I'm not sure if it flashed after I pressed the switch for the second time or the third time, the pressing of the switch, hearing it sound, seeing the light flash, and in hearing, I guess I could modify this now to another sort of gesture of the word on, were sort of too close in time, or they were too close in time for me to accurately discern the sequence of events at the moment. Yeah.
So let's not worry about the sequence of events for the moment. Let's think about the word on. So is on present to you? And also let's set aside what I might have said or didn't say about gesture.
Yeah.
About the word on and the word 1971. Do those appear to you in the same way or different ways?
They appear to me in the same way.
So about on, you said, I was innerly saying on, and about 1971, you said, I heard my own voice saying, I think. But that was then, and
Let's
now
just
we've had a
be clear
conversation.
though, because I had just innerly said to myself, and I remember this, is it not coming on? But then slightly after that, when I was still futzing with the switch, I heard on again in my own voice. But again, there was more of a passive element to it than an active saying, like, there was more of a passive element to it than an active element, as there had been when I had just said to myself, is it not coming on? It was almost like an echo of the word on. And I was pressing the switch on, which might have had something to do with that. Well, I was actually turning it on and then off and then on, but I was trying to get it on.
Okay. I think we've probably covered as much as we can cover on for one day here.
Okay. Are we sort of jumping ship on that one, or?
Well, I'm worried that my conversation about the gesture has screwed things up. So I'm willing to let that sort of settle into the cesspool or whatever of what things that have been said. Cesspool is a little degenerative more than I have to say, but
it's a bit harsh.
Compost heap, if that's the word. Compost heap is what I'm looking for. I don't want any particular word that I say or that you have said to get in the way of our looking at things that are coming up. So compost heap is pretty good actually, because everything that we've said goes into fertilizer pile, and maybe we'll be able to eventually grow something that's better than what went in or whatever.
Better than what went in. Yes. Okay. That sounds good. Is it possible, like, do you think it would be okay to do 7 or 8 beeps?
Well, why don't you record 7 or 8 beeps and we'll see how far we get.
Okay. Sounds good.
And let's see whether we can deal with the earphone. Let's do them with the earphone.
Yeah.
And I will do a little research about it. It's been a while since I bought the dongles, but I'll see whether I can figure out where those came from. They seem to work pretty well.
Okay, and I'm going to try to see what I can do on this end as well.
Okay. So I could send them to you, but it took us a long week to get something.
Right. I'll look into what I can do. I have different earphones. Maybe Eustina has access to some at work that have a volume, a little pot.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to do Tuesday. You're going to call me when, or you're going to say, let's Zoom at a particular time, sometime between now and then probably, and
I hope so, yes.
that's fine with me whenever you're ready.
Thanks very much.
I'm not going anywhere.
Okay.
Thank
That
you,
sounds
Phil.
great. Okay. Yep. Take care, Amber.
All right.
You too.
Yep.
See you later.
Have a good day.